Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the BUCS Weekend Kickoff. This week I'm joined by special guest Oskar Oldcorn, who's my brother, which is strange, so not that special. Oskar, you're the centre / captain / can play pretty much any position for the Nottingham Green. So thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all good. I'm a bit sore after yesterday. There's a few sore bodies in the house, but yeah, feeling good to win the division. Feeling good.
Yeah, speaking of yesterday, dominant win over Sheffield Hallam. You know how did that game kind of go for you lots?
Yeah, we spoke about it before the game and said that we know we have the talent to beat any team that we face. We think it's whether our execution's right and whether it was the case last year. I felt personally we had a better team man for man than Sheffield Hallam, but they executed better. And you know, when you play good teams such as Sheffield Hallam, good coaches, good players, if you don't execute, then they're going to make you pay, and they did last year, and it felt really sweet to get that one over on this weekend.
And as you said, you've won the division now. You've locked up at least the 3rd seed in the playoffs. Does that kind of take a little bit of pressure off you guys now?
Yeah, we were just very conscious that we didn't want to get into a situation where we had to go up to somewhere like Scotland twice. So to bank in the home game is big for us. We get good support at our home game, so it's a big factor for us, and obviously a lie-in and all the other stuff that comes with playing at home. So we're very conscious to playing, but also just make a statement to the rest of the division that we're here to be taken seriously, and we're a different team to last year.
Yeah, and more about yourself, what's kind of been your football journey like, up to now where you're playing for the Greens?
Yeah, well, it was actually you. I think one of my football trainings or something got cancelled and went down to the Assassins. Never really looked back. I quit soccer pretty soon after it, and yeah, it's been my life all the way. Assassins, probably from the age of about 10 to 16, 17. And then I moved to the Giants when the season at the Assassins kind of went down the pan and we had to fold. I went to the Sheffield Giants for 2 years, which was a lot of fun. With a lot of good people there as well. And then yeah, I've come to Nottingham and I've just loved my time here. It's been the best way that I can get sort of involved in 11-a-side football. It's a great environment, and yeah, I couldn't think of any better place.
They're forgetting to mention you're playing for the Wakefield Raiders, or did play anyways for the Wakefield Raiders at one stage. But no, maybe like, why did you choose Nottingham? There's a lot of different programs and around the country. What attracted you to the green and gold of Nottingham?
Yeah, so I had a call with Jason. I think he'd said he'd seen me at a GB camp, and I had a call with him, and he just basically outlined all the great reasons for the university. Like, the campus is beautiful, really high level of education, which the coaches said they could help me with if I fell a bit below the standard to get in. And it's just an elite program, and I kind of knew my own level. I was never going to be a full blown starter for a Prem team, so to go to a program that has 2 teams was key for me. But also to have the 2 teams that are very much one team. We all socialise together, we train together, everything's together apart from on that game day. But they're still always on the sideline and supporting, which we're really one team, but we just happen to play at 2 different times sometimes.
And also, there's been a massive position change for yourself, hasn't there? Going from playing predominantly D-line linebacker to all of a sudden you're going 11v11 in BUCS football and you're the centre, which were a bit of a shock to most people.
Yeah, it was a happy little accident, to be honest. It's a typical Brit ball thing. We got to the first game of the season, and I'd been training D-line my whole first pre-season at Nottingham. We got to the first game, and we had 3 linemen. So they were like, and I'd play there a bit in youth again because it's a recurring problem that if you play on one of the lines, you're probably playing both of them at some point. So yeah, I did that for a game, and then a game turned into you'll do it till Christmas, and then you'll do it till Christmas turned into you're an O lineman now, and I moved to centre. I think I played one game at centre in my first year. I played two actually. Once against Sheffield in the playoffs, and once against Northumbria in the playoffs. And I sort of enjoyed centre because I think a bit of a control freak. I kind of focus really heavily on the player books. I like to know everything and sort of set all the pass protections and the run blocking and stuff. So I really enjoyed that side of it, and so centre seemed pretty natural for me.
And then, but you also have that versatility to swap onto the opposite side of the ball. I remember a certain play for the Wakefield Raiders where, against the Doncaster Mustangs, like you got a pick six on you. I think we're at first play of the game. Well, your first play of the game, anyways.
Yeah, it was a good job they ran the screen. To be honest, it was probably, no offense to the Mustangs, it was the worst thrown screen pass I've ever seen. It was in the air for so long. And I knew when I was lined up covering the slot, which is never a position I should have found myself in. But I knew, I was like, well, if it's the screen, I'm jumping it. And I was just lucky that it was.
And then, what's your plans going forward for this year? Obviously, finish off the year with the Greens, and then what's next?
The Greens, I think we have a great shot. It's like I said earlier, we went into that game yesterday saying, I think if we execute our best football, then we're good enough to beat any team we come up against, and I truly believe that. We have talent all over the board, so it's about keeping the focus now. We've obviously clinched the division, so these games don't matter a huge lot. I mean, Edinburgh and UClan don't look like letting up points anytime soon, so we could struggle to move up. But it's more about getting the processes right, get people reps, get the team even more gelled than we are now. You know, we striving for perfection, and so while these two games could end up not meaning a whole lot, it means a whole lot into setting up a playoff push, which we intend to go very deep in.
Yeah, and the aim of this show is to look forward and look at the previews for the next week. So we'll go on to that now. And your senior side, I'd say senior, but your A team in a way, the Nottingham Gold, they host Loughborough this weekend alongside Leeds Beckett hosting Durham. Nottingham currently second in the division, coming off of that loss against Durham in the last week before Christmas. All three of UWE, Gold, and Durham have now all qualified for the playoffs at least. This game against Loughborough could be a potential slip up maybe for the Gold. Do you see that, or do you see you guys just being so dominant against the likes of Loughborough and Leeds Beckett that there's not really worry about
that? I think there's clearly a talent gap. With whatever it is, it's scholarships and stuff like that. There's clearly a bit of a gap between the top three in the Super Prem and the bottom two. But Loughborough are really well coached. They're really well schemed. Whenever we come up against them, it is never easy. I mean, I've never played them myself, but whenever we come up against Loughborough, they always seem to cause us a lot of problems. And they do still have a lot of talent. And in a division like the Super Prem, it only takes one person to have an off day, and who knows what can happen.
And one side that you have played against is Leeds Beckett, again not having the best of seasons, going 0-6 so far, conceding 297 points, going up against the Durham team that look like, realistically, apart from a bad weather game in Bristol, that they're unstoppable this year. So it's kind of the same for that one, isn't it? That Leeds Beckett, like you say, it's that separation of the top three and the bottom two, and Leeds Beckett have been in the bottom two, or at least the bottom one, for the last 2 seasons now. So it's going to be quite hard for them to overcome a challenge like Durham, isn't it?
Yeah, Durham, when they came to the David Ross, they looked really sharp, really on it, and we didn't look as sharp, which shows that if you're off on a few players, it makes all the difference. And yeah, they're a really talented side. They look like they've got some really talented players. But yeah, Beckett as well. They scored points on our Gold team. You know, they were in the fight for a lot longer than people sort of suggested they would be in it for. So again, Beckett are a talented team of talented players, and from our perspective as well, I grew up a lot around Beckett. I hope to see them challenging at the top soon, but there is just, it seems to be a bit of a talent gap, and I can't really see Beckett giving Durham that much of a challenge, but that's all credit to Durham. The great
Yeah,
side.
because we remember going down to Loughborough for the national finals, wasn't it? When Leeds Beckett were there in their first, and winning their only national championship to date. And definitely, it's a program with a lot of potential, but over the last 2 years, they've struggled to show it really. But no, definitely Durham. This is quite a nice start for them for this run. There's 4 weeks left of the regular season. After this, they've got to host UWE before travelling to Loughborough. Before in the last week of the season, they host Nottingham Gold. So it's kind of a nice start for them. A lot of the scores, they've got a lot more scores than what Nottingham do. But I think they've got 11. I think you guys have got 3 or 4.
No, we have. I think we have 6.
You have 6. But definitely Durham look like after last season that they've just added a bit more extra spice to the division. It's quite a nice competition to see now, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think the kind of scholar talk is a bit null and void now. I think the level's so high from every team. I don't think you can tell by watching Nottingham or watching Durham or watching UWE which guys are there on a scholarship. And I know from my personal experience, there's 2 linemen in the room this year, and they're just so great to have around and bring the experience. It only makes everything better. So I think the gap is definitely closing, and I don't think it affects it that much because our guys that are scholarship guys are just as competitive, and they're just as good.
Yeah, and then we jump down a division, look at the Prem North first. We always go north to south. Nottingham Trent, they come out of the Christmas break. Last week we were speaking to Ian. He has to face Leeds at home. Leeds this week could be all but out of it. Their own 5, another loss here, 0-6, and that it looks impossible in a way. They will have 2 games left, but in them 2 games they'll have to concede next to no points and hope that Newcastle, concede a bunch and lose both of their games, which Newcastle have been a streaky team so far. But definitely Nottingham Trent look like the class of the division this year, and your crosstown rivals, a side that you haven't played in many, many years. Is that a good thing that they? Yeah, is that a good thing that they could potentially be fighting to go back into this Super Prem?
Oh, definitely. I think no one. I think everyone from both Nottingham sides. I think it's been more logistics than anything else in why we haven't played in a couple of years. It's great for the sport in the local area. Obviously, the Caesars had a big run the year before last and had a decent start in the Prem. So it's really good for sport in the area, to be honest, to have 2 teams fighting at the top level. Like I say, it's annoying when you lose to some teams. If we lost to Trent, I'd be gutted. But ultimately, having better competition makes everyone more interested in Britball, and only makes it better. So I wish Trent the best, honestly. And they look like they got a good side, and I like Ian too, so it should be all right.
And then the other game in that division this weekend, we see Warwick Wolves. They host Northumbria. Both teams coming off a win of last week. Warwick 23-14 over Leeds. Northumbria beating the city rivals in Newcastle 26-20. It's not going to be an easy travel down for Northumbria. That's going to be a hell of a journey. I think you know more than most people that journey is a good few hours. You're traveling up there, every couple of months or so.
Yes.
But definitely that's going to be a killer for them. And for these 2 sides, right now, Warwick have qualified for the playoffs. No matter what, if Northumbria can get another win, I believe that they would do as well. If they can win this week, they can go to 4-2. But again, other results, if Leeds lose, that will also qualify them for the playoffs and keep their status in the Prem North when you played them on the rise when they're in Div 2. I coached against them when they're in Div 2. It's been kind of impressive how this program's gone from being relegated to Div 2, not looking that good. All of a sudden they've got a few good recruitment signings and they've just gone from strength to strength, and now sitting third in the Prem North. It's looking good if you're a Mustang.
Yeah, the Northumbria were a brilliant side when they played us. We were kind of rising at the same time. We'd won our division and they'd won theirs, and they were a class above us, especially on that day. We carried some injuries in. I think they're more of a run heavy team and we're more split as well. And it absolutely poured it down. So that didn't help us, but even without that, I think they were a class above. They were very physical, and being very physical and controlling the line is something that'll carry you up through the divisions, no problem.
And you can't forget your centre had a dislocated shoulder, or partially dislocated shoulder, anyways.
Yeah, there's apparently photos of it somewhere.
Somewhere. But no, and then in the South, Portsmouth, who have, again, I think in the Prem North and Prem South, it's pretty much half the teams are struggling. There's one team that's doing a bit okay, and then the other two are doing really well. So this week we see Portsmouth host Brunel. Brunel are looking again. They're looking to go back to back after coming up from Div 1 last year. Portsmouth, who you would have thought would have kicked on from last year, they looked quite promising at one point. But no, this year only the one loss. Sorry, only the one win against Exeter. Brunel 6-0. It looks like they're just going to keep going down here, and that they're going to win that Prem South and hold the 1 seed going into the national Vars. And then you look as well. You got SGS. They're going to be hosting Exeter. SGS. It's been kind of a struggle for them because they started really slowly, weren't scoring many points, were conceding quite a few. But Exeter again, they look a bit like Leeds, where if they lose this weekend, it's all but over for them. Really, they're still mathematically in it, but I think a loss here is definitely a big blow to any team, and it's not nice to see the Demon side that surprised a lot of us last year, but it means that the likes of Cardiff and Portsmouth will stay in the division.
Yeah, it's pretty tough for team. I think people are still kind of suffering the fallout of the BUCS realignments as well. I think in a few years they'll become really close and tight, but it's also just a facet of uni ball. It's a 3-year cycle, and if you don't sort of get the jobs done in that 3-year cycle and recruit well and all that stuff, it can turn very quickly.
And last year we were supposed to have had a up-down game. I don't know what you call it, a yo-yo game. Obviously that didn't happen. This year, if you were to go off the seeds, it'd either be Brunel or Nottingham Trent. Obviously, they have to play through the playoffs and get to the final and win it. But definitely, do you think this year that we will see that final? Do you think that's going to have to happen and potentially see a shake-up in the Prem National?
I hope so, just because a new team gives new challenges to the teams at the top, and I think it can be beneficial for a team to go down for a year and sort of fight the way back up as well and rebuild that way. Because no one has fun when they're losing all the time. It can't be good for the players, their coaches and stuff. So I think going down for a year with nothing to be scared of. I don't really know what happened with the game last year, but I also think it'd be a great game to watch.
Yeah, and then next, the Tier 1 North. Scotland, we're expecting to lose another game this weekend between Aberdeen and Heriot Watt. Aberdeen are currently 0-5, but have yet to play a game. So we're expecting them not to play again this weekend and give Heriot Watt their second win of the season. Then it's going to be a tough one to talk about anyways because Aberdeen doesn't exist at the minute. And then it's that Stirling Glasgow. At the minute, Nottingham Green would be playing Stirling at the David Ross Centre. So this is one for your keen eyes anyways because it's between the 6th seed and the 8th seed with Stirling potentially going to be leapfrogged by Glasgow if Glasgow win.
Sterling did a number on UClan last year, didn't they? So they're one to watch out for sure. I don't know if they're a team I'd like to pick to play against, but yeah, we'll be ready for whoever comes.
The former national champions, of course, as well, but definitely that this. It's going to be tough to see how this Scotland division shakes up when they come against some of the English sides because we only ever see them play each other and they'll only get 1 or 2 games against an English team and you look like Edinburgh Napier who've been crowned champions of the Scottish 1A yesterday we're calling this on Monday night, so congratulations to them guys, but definitely this Stirling Glasgow game looks like the pick of the week if you were to pick a game just because of how close the teams are and what kind of implications that might have for the rest of the season. Going over to the north, a little bit closer to where we're from anyways. Man Met, they'll host Liverpool. It's kind of a nothing game, this. Manchester Met can still make the playoffs, but they're 2-4. It's going to be a long shot for them. Liverpool are 1-4. Neither side have looked that good this year. Liverpool look like they're kind of finding their home again, in a way. Many people would argue that they are a Div 1 team and they got up to the Prem just because of this new realignment. Man Met would be just missing out in the playoffs as we have it. They're the 9th seed. Obviously, you need to be in the top 8 to go into the playoffs. But Manchester Met with a win here could definitely help their chances in going to the playoffs. And they could potentially kick out your rivals in Sheffield Hallam with a couple of wins for the rest of the year. And then Edge Hill, Lancashire, that kind of looks like a dead set that Lancashire are going to win that one. Edge Hill have not been able to get it moving. They've not been able to stop teams. Only scoring 20 points and conceding 150. But on the flip side, Lancashire have scored 216 and not conceded a single point yet this year. Lancashire, again, are kind of like Nottingham in a way, maybe without the American scores, but definitely with some of the British talent they're able to bring in. They offer quite good scholarship packages. So definitely, and they're taking not advantage of it, but they're reaping the rewards of it, aren't they? Look like they're going to take another shot at the playoffs last year. Obviously, being the 2nd seed in their division, having to travel to Stern and losing. But no, it looks like there's no stopping in Lancashire this year. And then finally, we'll get onto your division. We'll talk about your game last. But first of all, Sheffield Hallam Leicester. What's your thoughts on that one? Because I think most people say it's a Sheffield Hallam dead cert, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Obviously, playing against both of them, I think Leicester are just sort of a few numbers short, and they just couldn't really ever seem to get it going in offense for us. And when you put in the defense on the field as much as they were against us, it starts to become a really long day, and you don't win football games like that. But last year Leicester were tough. They gave us some really good challenges. So they're definitely not bad, and they've got a good staff. But I think Hallam are very talented, and I think they had a bit of an off day against us as well. So I'd expect them to bounce back.
And just to caveat that as well, if Leicester do lose at the weekend, they'll see themselves relegated back down to Tier 2. With Derby sitting 1-3-1, they'd also be for the chop potentially. Again, it's weird with this because we get 3 teams going down from 2 divisions because you can't be relegated from the Scottish division. And then, we'll go on to your game. Part of the double header, I believe.
Yep.
And you'll be hosting the Derby Braves, a team that last time out, let me get this score up, you beat 46-0. Can we expect more of the same?
Yeah, hopefully. We haven't really given it much thought, to be honest. We tend to not look that far ahead. It was a really good performance last time. A lot of guys got in, a lot of points were scored. So it felt really nice to be. I was on the sideline for that one, but it felt really nice to be there and watch that. And yeah, I would hope for another win. But sort of Coach Scott's big on like if you go in expecting something, then you don't really deserve anything from it. So yeah, we'll be focused. We'll have we had yesterday and today to sort of celebrate winning the division, and we'll be back to executing tomorrow night.
Yeah, so just more about the relegation anyways. The Liverpool and Edge Hill do play again. The last time that turned out, Liverpool got the win. So let's say that'd happen again. Now, if Derby lose out the rest of the year, they would be relegated because they'd be sat at 3 points. And if Liverpool get the win, they'd be 4 points. However, Derby do play Leicester, and we'll talk about that game, I believe, next week. We'll talk about that game next week on the show and kind of how big that game will be for Derby and definitely for Liverpool as well, because they'll have to keep one eye on that game to see how Derby do after they got their draw against Sheffield, the 6-0 draw against Sheffield. So, yeah. Just about Sheffield, they've been kind of the surprise of your division this year, haven't they? Coming up as Tier 2 champions, starting life really, really well. I think they've got a good couple of wins against the Leicesters and Derby, teams that should be beating. But as soon as they played you guys and they played Sheffield Hallam, it were, you could kind of see why they were touted to not be so strong, but currently sat in the number 2 spot in your division. Was that kind of a surprise to how good they were doing?
It wasn't a surprise for me. We played them in my first year, 2 years ago, in the first round of the playoffs, and we beat them on sort of it was like an RPO, but we should have never thrown it, and it was tipped up in the air, and he somehow come down with it. So they were a good side, and they were very close to beating us that year. Obviously, I've spent a lot of time with Coach Phil as well at the Giants, who's now the Sabres head coach, and He's very organised, very disciplined. They're not going to give you anything, Sheffield. You've got to earn it, and I think that's why they're so well. And they've got very talented offensive players as well. One of their receivers was really good against us, and their QBs can sling it too. So they're a good side. I think they're a bit unfortunate when they came to us because they'd just come off that bit of a drumming from Hallam. So I don't know how that affected them, but yeah, they're very well coached and well organised.
Yep, and now we'll go to the south. I think it's if you watch the live shows, you'll know how bad my geography is, and I have no idea where any of these places are. And I'm Oskar, you're probably the same with this as well. In the south western, we see quite a big game in Bath versus Bristol, and this game could see who's kind of top of that division. Obviously, Bournemouth are currently 7-0, but because of their points, their head start of the year where they were on minus points, they've only got one game left. So the most they can finish on 9 points, and currently Bristol are top of that division with 8. So Bristol only have to win the game on Saturday, and they will be crowned kings of the Southwest. So that's going to be a big thing for them. But Bath could also throw a spanner in the works and kind of force themselves into it. And then Southampton, Plymouth, a massive game for relegation. I think a win for Southampton guarantees their safety. As I'm looking at it, not quite, but it definitely would have a massive thing on it because it'd have the head-to-head over Southampton have the head-to-head over Plymouth, and that'd be huge towards that relegation there for Plymouth only having one season in Tier 1. We'll jump over to the southern, Hertfordshire, Oxford. Hertfordshire this year, they looked at the start of the year a bit shaky, but all of a sudden started to come alive a bit more. And against an Oxford side who can't buy a win, I think it's going to be quite telling that Hertfordshire are going to do well in that game. And then Oxford, Brooks, East Anglia. Brooks, who I think most people had as one of the top teams in this division coming up from Tier 2, with their great coaching staff and their players they've got, playing against East Anglia side that lost 28-0 at the weekend against Birmingham, who Birmingham are one of them 50-50 teams. Sometimes they'll look really good, and most of the time they're struggling. But definitely that this Southern has been interesting so far. You got Hertfordshire and Oxford, Brooks 4-1, Birmingham 3-3, and then Oxford and East Anglia 1-3 and 1-5. So definitely this East Anglia game against Oxford Brooks is going to have a massive effect on their relegation hopes, and kind of show Oxford what they need to do and what they'll need for the rest of the season to stay in it. And then we'll go to the South East. Brighton will host King's College. Kent against Kingston. King's College 4-1 unbeaten so far. A win here can really help them for the rest of the year. And you look at UCL and Kingston 1-5. With most divisions now, they've got top 2, middle, and then the bottom 2. And in most of the division, this Tier 1 South, they're all like that. So again, these games at the weekend are going to be interesting to just see kind of if any of these teams at the bottom can jump up and really cause a bit of a fight to the top teams. But in most cases, they don't look like that. And definitely over the next couple of weeks, when we see a lot of these top teams play each other again, is where it's going to start to get really, really interesting. And the playoffs look quite tasty in the north and the south. And then we'll finally go on to Tier 2, the best division in football, obviously. Lancaster, LJMU. LJMU, I've only played one game so far, and that was a win. Lancaster have played 2, won both. So this is who can be top of the Northwest. You don't play many games in Tier 2 anymore, unfortunately, and this game is possibly the biggest game for both sides. Promotion, Oskar, obviously you know that promotion doesn't work like in the other 2 divisions where you've got to win the playoffs to be promoted. No, this is whoever finishes top of the table, they're going to be promoted. And currently Lancaster sitting 2-0, they're top of this division. So they'll look like they are going to definitely be up there and take the fight. We'll go over to your old division first. A couple of sides you could probably comment on here. Coventry, who you played against last year, who got relegated, they host Cambridge, and Lincoln host De Montfort. De Montfort getting a shock win earlier in the season against AIU, who look really good. But, kind of, what's this division like, and how can you see this kind of going forward?
Yeah, it's tough. Coventry went down last year, but we won the division, and our 2 games against them ended something like 14-0 and then 6-0. and they had the ball on our 10, and we got a stop on 4 in the 6-0 game. So they were a tough side. I don't think they had very good numbers from what I remember. Their sideline looked particularly small, which might have hindered them. But yeah, there's definitely talent. I think that division is just grey, and you've got to try to find a way to get out of that.
Yeah, and right now there's no standalones. Is that it was AIU at the start of the year, but now they've had 2 losses, against Coventry and De Montfort. But the rest of it, every single side has got a loss, and most of them are against each other. So at the minute, it's looking quite interesting, and most teams are nearly finished with their season, which is quite sad to say as we're only getting to the end of January. And then we'd look to my old division, one that you'll be somewhat familiar with, especially with Hull. You played them last year.
We had them in pre-season as well.
Exactly. We both played with their head coach at the Assassins at Wakefield, but they'll travel up to Sunderland, travel up to Druid Park, another place where we've both played, and we know how awful that place is on the edge of a runway. Sunderland with their scholars have looked really good, and I think that's kind of the cheat code in Tier 2. If you can get a couple of Americans, you'll be all right for the rest of the season. And again, this is much like the Northwest, where whoever can win this looks like they're going to win the division. Both at 1-0-1, so both 3 points each. Last time out, it was a draw. I hope it's not a draw again, because that'd be quite awful. But no, definitely, it's going to be a great one to see if Sunderland can keep on the momentum they've got after scoring so many points against York St John, and York St John will be playing their crosstown rivals in York this week. So a lot of derby games, are geographical derby games anyways happening this weekend. But York St John look like they're just going to struggle for the rest of the year, unfortunately. And it's never good to see the side that can't win, especially in Div 2. And it's you look at the Midlands, for example, and Lincoln are the same. York St John, and Kiel, all without a win, and you just kind of hope for their sake and the programme's sake that they can at least get one. Even if it's a scrappy one to win by a point, or it's just a safety that wins, you kind of hope for the rest of the year that they can win, because it's how you keep players in it, by building that morale and keeping that win. And I think we've known from being in sides that don't win a lot. You look at our time at Yorkshire, the U19s, or even at Wakefield, that just 1 or 2 wins can really change the morale of the place and keep people active and interested. But definitely for York St John, it looks like a tough task. 2 new head coaches going against each other. So this is definitely going to be an interesting one to watch out for on Sunday. And then finally, Tier 2 South, Baspar against Worcester. This again is kind of a nothing game at the minute. Worcester 0-2-1, Baspar 1-1. It's kind of a nothing game. Another side that's 0-2 is Aberystwyth. Never been good at saying that, but I think I've finally cracked it. They'll play against Swansea in an all Wales fixture. Swansea 2-0. I think we remember them when they were playing in the Prem when they came to Leeds Beckett, and they look decent, but no, they've had a fall from grace, and now they're top of the division. Hopefully can push on and get a kind of win here, where UWE2s don't play this weekend, so it's going to be a massive plus for them. UWE2s are a bit unlike yours, aren't they? There's no connection between the first team and the second team. Does that kind of hinder them in a way, do you think, especially for the second team, that they are using using a playbook that's probably tailored more towards Tier 2, where when you were in Tier 2 with Greens, you were using one that was for the Prem North and the top of the Prem North?
I don't think it's any better or worse. I think it's just different ways of approaching it. I get a lot of, I think I've got a lot better from being around better players, and obviously people who might be on the gold staff. But I say gold staff, and it doesn't really exist because everyone just does both. So I think personally, I prefer it the way Nottingham have done it, but I've never been in that situation. And some people are trying to, have that extra competitiveness, and that can grate on personalities in practice as well. So I think it's two ways of doing it, and I like the situation I'm in, but I can see the benefits that having 2 very separate teams could have.
And there's only one game in the Tier 2 Southern, and that's Solent versus Sussex. Solent 0-3. Again, it's going to be tough for them against a Sussex side, 1-1. Solent back in the division. But again, for that kind of to keep the players around, they need to find a winner. They need to have some sort of good result, even if it's a close loss. It kind of gives you hope for the rest of the year. And then finally, we don't have a game this week in the Southeastern, so that's it for this week. So again, yeah. So Oscar, this weekend again, you're playing. It's going to be a good one, isn't it? I mean, first of all, how can people watch it?
UoNsport.tv. It's $6.99, I think, for the month.
Or it's free if you just show up on the day and can watch from
the balcony.
You can
come to the David Ross. Yeah, totally free on the David Ross. It's I'm pretty sure it's the Beef Memorial game as well. So it's a day that's sort of very close to everyone in sort of the Nottingham football community.
And for people who don't know, who was Beef and why is he so important to your team?
He was the O-line coach before I ever got here. And Coach always says like the people who knew Beef on the team gets less and less. But sort of, I remember my first year we had like a full classroom meeting talking about the man. He worked with the Outlaws when the two university teams were together. And like his wife comes and supports us at all our home games, and she'll always bring us a beer and a cookie after. So, we try and remember a man that did a lot for Nottingham football, and like a lot of our coaches were very close with him. So yeah, we just try our best to remember sort of a great man that did great things for football in Nottingham.
And hopefully you can remember in the right way by getting the win on Sunday. So yeah, so again, Oscar, thanks for joining me tonight, and thanks everyone for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.